Hi, Mickey from Flipping Spain. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Now we've looked at rental properties, we've looked at potential flip properties, we've compared cities, but what we haven't done is looking at true vacation rentals. So there are some places in the north of Spain that are on the coast, and I've always wanted to live by the sea. So a strategy that I think works well if you have a long-term goal, like you've always wanted to have a ski chalet or a house by the beach, then something you can do is look at, could I buy that today? Even if I can't live in it right now, could I buy it and could it pay for itself so that I have it when I'm ready to move into it? So we're just going to explore that for fun. So I've had a little look up at the north. There are a couple bigger cities. Bilbao is a very popular tourist destination. Santander, maybe not so much, but still in the same area. They have good transport links. There are airports, trains. Even Santander has a ferry that goes to the UK. And the Camino, of course, runs along the coast as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see, A, if there's anything in my budget in either of those areas that's worth buying, and B, if the income from a tourist rental can actually make some money. So the criteria we're going to do is number one would be sea view, top priority. If that's not possible due to price or whatever, or if there's an alternative that's very close to the beach but doesn't quite have a view or is in really great shape, then we'll consider that. The normal rule that I have of not being in the old town or in the heavy tourist centers goes out the window because that's exactly where we want to be for this kind of rental. And let's just see what we can find.
Well, I had a look in two places. I looked in Bilbao, which is just to the northeast of La Rioja, and then Santander, which is just to the north, slightly to the west. I couldn't find anything in my budget in Bilbao, so that immediately rules that out. Now, I went through a list of properties in Santander. I'm not limiting it by any size because I'm probably going to have to buy a studio or a one bedroom for my budget. I'm not going to bother with this because, as we've talked about before, it doesn't really filter out everything you need it to filter out. But what I am going to do is put sea views. Now, I've found that marketing in Spain and on Idealista is not great. You would think that something with a sea view would lead with a beautiful picture like this. Most of them don't. So I've played with this quite a bit. And of all the things I found, I narrowed it down to these two properties. So we've got a one bed that is right near the coast. And then we've got a two bed that's across the way and has great views. Let's look at the two bed first, because even though it's more expensive, a two bed seems like it makes more sense. It's 125,000 euro for two beds, and it's second floor exterior with a lift. So good sized kitchen. Nothing fancy. Looks like maybe there's supposed to be a washer dryer plugged in there. It's not terribly modern, and that might have an impact on our ability to rent it, but a lot of that is furniture, and we can certainly make the most of the more traditional features and then update. The bathroom's in good shape, the kitchen's in good shape. We are definitely right on the water, so that's good. Let's look at our one bedroom. This is one bed, it's half the size, it's fifth floor without a lift. Now, normally I would not look at this at all. However, as we go through the photos, we can see it's really traditional, but it's also been updated and it looks very Airbnb-ish. So it's going to appeal to a lot of people. It says one bedroom, but it looks more like a studio. It's tiny, it's quirky, it doesn't have a view, but it's cute and it's touristy, and it appears to be in a fantastic location. So we're going to consider it. Also, the price is really good. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is go to Airbnb and see what it looks like. So the first thing I notice looking at the map is that there are lots of things to rent over here, and there is nothing to rent over here, which is where the two-bedroom apartment is. There are a couple things over here. That raises two questions. One, do people not want to stay over here in this area, and so there's no demand? Or two, are there restrictions on the property that don't allow it to be rented out as a short-term rental? So those are questions we would have to ask. But Puerto Chico, which is where our 5th floor apartment is right on the coast there. It's looking really good. Now, I've just done a search for a weekend in September, October, or November, which is not high season, because I want to get a feel for a realistic and conservative rate. And the nightly rates are not looking that great. I'm assuming these are 2-night stays, so maybe 140. I mean, that's pretty good. If we change it to look at a week, just see if that makes a difference. So that definitely drops down the nightly rate a bit, whether you'd expect that. Let's have a look at this one. So $89 a night we're getting on the weekend. And if I have a look at the availability, it's wide open, which is not what I want to see. If we go back into August and September, it does look like they've been booked up heavily. So it might be the kind of thing where you have to think about, can I rent it for a really high rate for maybe 2 or 3 months across the summer and have that income, and then live in it during the fall, or rent it long-term during the fall and the spring. So there's a little playing with numbers that have to be done. But this kind of gives us an idea. We're going to stick with that $89 a night. So I did find a 2-bedroom that is in that area that's just north of where the 2-bedroom that we're considering is. So similar area. It's across the harbor anyway. So this has great views. That helps always. Looks like it has a car space, which probably anyone renting it would have a rental car. So lots of, okay. Sorry, just the rhinoceros has caught my eye. There must be some kind of animal park nearby. That's crazy. Oh, you never know. How funny. And that one we're getting $115 a night for. And let's look at their availability also, just to compare. So again, looks like they're pretty booked in August and September. And they've got some weekends and Christmas time. Let's plug those numbers into our spreadsheet. So I've gone ahead and done this already. So we've got our $85,000 for our 1-bed and $125,000 for our 2-bed. And it's good that the $125,000 doesn't need any work, because that is like way up high in the budget. So I've made the same assumptions that we've made in the past with taxes and HOA fees, and all of these things could be a bit lower, could be a bit higher. That's research we're going to have to do, but these are the numbers we've been working with, so we'll stick with it. And then here in the business costs, I've bumped up everything. So I've done the utilities reasonably high. I've done the supplies. I mean, I could bump these up a lot more, but I just kind of want to see if it works in a good, comfortable zone. I haven't done any cleaning, and that's tricky because this is not in the town that I'm going to live in. So, and it's not a property I can live in and share with others. So there will be cleaning fees, but I'm leaving this blank at the moment just so I can see if the numbers even come close to working, and then we can sort of figure out what solutions there are for that problem. So for the 1-bedroom, we did $89 a night, and I figured out I'd need to rent it for at least 12 nights. That would be renting it 3 nights minimum every weekend of the month. And that does put us in a cash flow position, again, without some extra expenses there. For the 2-bedroom, it's $115 a night, did the same amount of nights per month, and we're cash flowing a bit more. So probably if I had 4 rentals and they each cost $50 to clean, which I think is probably pretty generous, it probably costs a bit more, I'm still going to cash flow. Now, I'm not making tons of money off this, but it's just paying for itself so I can have it sometime in the future. And I feel like when you look at it that way, like, would you pay yourself $160 a month in order to own a home by the beach? And then I can go and use it whenever it's vacant. It's far better than just paying for it without it making any money. Okay, now we're also going to look at long-term rents. And the reason we do this, I talked about this more in my video about why we're analyzing rents, even though we're going in to flip houses. And that, in a nutshell, is because we need a backup plan. So in this case, maybe our furnished short-term rental, maybe there's just not enough demand. Maybe we can only rent it out for a couple months in the summer and then a few weekends over the holiday periods. That's not going to consistently cover the cost of owning this. So for that, we're going to go to Idealista, of course, and look at, and I've drawn my own map to cover the coastal areas. because I don't want to know what it costs to rent in town or out in the country at this point. I just want to know what it costs to rent in the beach near my area. So I'm ordered these by lowest price. And as we can see, there's quite a bit of range. So we've got 500. Now, some of these could be set back. My map area is not super specific. But it's good to know how low things can go. So maybe let's look at most recent, just order it in a different way so we can get some. So there's $750 with a sea view for a 2-bed. This is just a temporary rental from September to June. So this person's probably doing what I'm talking about. They rent it out in the off season long term, and then during the summer months, they really make some money off it. And we can figure out what that balance would look like. So another $750, but here's a 1-bedroom for $2,400. So who the heck knows? They're basically doing Airbnb pricing on Idealista. Here's a 1-bedroom for $875. And ours is really cute, so it could rent for more. $1,300 for a 2-bed. Yeah, so prices are kind of all over the place. So if we find something sort of middle of the road, we'll probably get some attention. And that's the other thing, is like, how competitive is it? You got to really think about that. But there's different ways to compete. You don't have to compete on price. Okay, so let's take that information and put it into our sheet. So what I've gone ahead and done is assume that because our 1-bedroom is pretty cute looking and it's right by the beach and it's furnished, we're going to try and charge $850 for that, which gives us a profit of just under $300 a month, which interestingly is more than I think we would make on a short-term rental based on the assumptions we're using. So that's good to know. For our 2-bed, we're going to go $1,100. That seems a little bit high, but also it's in a beachy area. We can target the right kind of tenant that wants to pay a little more for something because of where it's located or because of the amenities. And then that does make a difference there. Even though we're making less money per month, there's more of a profit because we have things like the cleaning. I'll take that out just to be fair on both sides. So in this case, it does sort of show it to be comparable, where here, if we put the cleaning in, we'd be making no money. So it's a couple $100 better to rent long-term if we can only rent it out short-term for those rates and for 12 nights a month. So this tells us where we need to dig in deeper. And we need to look at things like what nightly rents are actually achievable. And that could be found out by talking to some property managers, things like that. This is like the top level view where we can sort of see, does this even come close to working? Well, yeah, it does. But there's some things that need to be tweaked and some numbers that need to be refined in order for us to have a very clear picture. But if we look down at our cash on cash return, we're only looking at 3 or 4% on our money. So if we were just in it for the finances, then we'd have to say this is not a great investment because we can make more than that somewhere else for sure. We've already seen that in our other deal analyses. But if we're looking at a way to own a property by the beach that we can use, then it's viable.
Well, that was informative. It wasn't particularly encouraging, but we did learn a few things. We learned that we can actually afford to buy something up there, which is a bonus. We learned that we need to dig in a bit more into the details on how consistent tourist rental income is. Can we only rent it for a few months in the summer, or is there a demand year round? Need to learn a little bit more about the area and what draws people there so we know what kind of tenant we can target. It was really interesting to look into activities that bring people into the area because I knew there were surf camps, but apparently kitesurfing is also huge. So maybe there are digital nomads who want a winter rental so they can learn Spanish, do their work, and then be near kitesurfing. These are the kinds of creative thinking that we want to apply when we're considering investing in an area. Always want to know all the options so that you have backup plans or alternative options and just to know what's possible. But for now, I think we'll stick to flipping and can't wait to get started on that. It's only a month now until I land in Spain. So thanks for sticking with me and I'll see you in the next video.